Hi everyone, it's Emma. Today I'm going to do something that I'm very excited about. I came about this video because I always mention my favorite series in wrap-ups or in tags or just in passing, but I never get a chance to explain why I love that series and give you guys an idea as to whether you would like it as well. Also, the idea of making book talks for some of my favorite series is just like so overwhelming because I think I would just talk for hours and hours and hours. Like there's too many things to talk about. So for some of my favorite series, whenever I feel the inspiration to make these videos, I'm just gonna make spoiler-free videos about why I love the series, telling you guys everything that I really enjoyed in it, so that you can kind of get an idea as to whether it's something you would like. So today, for the first one, I'm talking about the Foxhole Court, or the All for the Game series by Nora Sakavic. Again, this is a spoiler-free video, so I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to talk about the things that are unique to this series that I really enjoy. I don't really give this trilogy to anybody. It's not one that I'm just going to recommend to everyone, because there's a lot of serious topics that are handled in these books. I never really recommend it to anyone without giving them a warning. Like, for example, I gave this first book to my dad for Christmas because I really thought he would enjoy it, but I was like, I think you're going to enjoy this. But also, there are a lot of triggers in here. I guess first I should give you guys a little summary of these books. The All for the Game series has 3 books in it. The first one is the Foxhole Court, and then the Raven King, and then the Kingsmen. I found this series because a lot of people who like the Raven Cycle also like the Foxhole Court, and it's very confusing because the second book in this series is called the Raven King and the last book in the Raven Cycle is called the Raven King. So Neil Jostin is the son of this very violent crime lord, basically, and he's been on the run for a very long time, but he gets recruited to this sports team and he starts attending Palmetto State, this college sports team. It's a made-up sport called Exy. Exy is a co-ed sport, and it's like a mix between lacrosse and racquetball, but it's as violent as ice hockey. In the back of one of the books, there's actually like a guideline to all of the rules and stuff, which helps a lot because when you're reading the books, I was like, what in the world kind of sport is this? Coach Wymack, the coach of the Foxes, only recruits kids from broken homes, which is where a lot of the triggers come in because these kids have just experienced very intense things of a wide variety. So the Foxes all come from different backgrounds and they don't really work together. These books are like the story of them coming together as a team and growing together as people, and how Neil changes the team when he joins and brings everyone together. It's very character driven. Like, I didn't read them for a while because I kept reading the description and seeing sports and thinking, I don't want to read a sports book, but it is very, very character focused. I promise, even if you don't like sports at all, you can still enjoy these books. The reason I'm careful when I recommend this book is because it has a lot of triggers. A lot of the triggers are in the past tense, like you find out that characters struggled with these things in the past, but some of them are not. There is a lot of violence, abuse, drug and alcohol abuse. I'm going to link to a Tumblr post that has a full list of all the triggers in the description box. Nora Sakavic addresses all of these heavy topics head on. She doesn't sugarcoat it, but she doesn't do it in a way to add angst or like she's trying to make you feel heavy. It doesn't feel like that. It's more like she writes it that way because that's how the world is. But I'm going to talk more about that later. For now, I'm going to put this book down. For me, that was one of the things that I really loved about these books, is that Nora Sakavic really shows a lot of growth. It shows how terrible things that happen to people can really make them stronger. Like, for example, Neil, the main character, obviously because of his father being this crime lord guy and he's been on the run for a long time, he's just experienced a lot of cruelty, and it made him, Neil, have this zero tolerance towards cruelty. In the beginning, he really, doesn't let anyone help him, but at the same time he's really loyal to the other people. Like, he gets outraged on other people's behalf if they are subjected to any kind of cruelty. He kind of stands as an example to the other characters, which I really liked. There's this theme of the other characters watching him and seeing how he has responded to the things he's experienced. I can't spoil you guys as to which characters or what it does, but basically the way that the Foxes are at the end, they couldn't have gotten there without Neil, and I liked that it was Neil who did that because he really is the underdog character. Even though the characters support each other and help each other, there's no codependency in these books, even though they're all complete messes and they're trying to work through their traumas from the past and the present. There isn't this romanticized idea of fixing each other, which is something that I see a lot in YA today, and I really dislike seeing that. I think it's okay to portray codependency as an example, but a lot of times I feel like it's romanticized, and these books really do not contain that at all. They really give each other space to work out their own issues. They know that, like, they can be supportive and help each other, but they have to work through themselves. A really good example of that is their coach, Coach Wymack. You would think that as the adult figure in their lives, he should live by example and be this like upstanding man. He's not like that. He's really rough. He gets where they've come from, because these kids don't necessarily trust or respect adults. And instead of trying to like help them do what's right and like follow a very clean path, he gives them space to work everything out. He lets them make mistakes, yet he's really like fiercely loving, and he's a foundation for them when they need it. I also really love the team aspect, just watching them come together as people, and they all really are so disjointed in the beginning. They all have such like anger issues, and just no one trusts anybody, or even if they're trying to make it work, they really don't understand each other. So I liked that they all have Exie in common, and it forces them to come together. Nothing's ever come easy to these kids, so they work really hard for what they want, and they want to do well in Exie. There are a lot of characters in these books, which is why I haven't given you a rundown of all the characters. There's a video that someone made that I watched on YouTube right after I read the first book. If I can find it again, I'm going to link it down below. She just kind of did a rundown of all the characters, so I'll link that down below if you want to know more about each specific character. One of the things I love is that it's a co-ed sport, and the girls on the team are just such great, strong female characters. The captain of the team is a girl. Her name is Dan Wilds. She's just this like solid, steady, strong girl, but she doesn't do it in a really overwhelming, I'm gonna yell at you all the time way. I loved that about her. I related to Dan a lot. I really loved her relationship with Matt, one of the guys on the team. They're a couple throughout the whole books, like, not a spoiler, the books start and they're already a couple. I liked their relationship a lot because Matt gives Dan the room to fight her own battles. Unless Dan actually wanted Matt's help, then of course he would have stepped in and like done whatever. And on the other hand, Dan is really fiercely loves and protects Matt. So I really loved their relationship. I also related to Renee. Renee is another of the girls on the team. It's this joke that no matter what you disagree on, everyone agrees that you can't be mean to Renee because she's like this sweet little Christian girl. But you find out a lot more about Renee's background, and I liked that she wasn't just what she seems on the surface. She actually has this past that's very dark and intense, which is why it made her such a kind, loving person. The last girl on the team is Allison, who is kind of this typical rich girl. I didn't relate to Allison as much, but even still, I liked her. I liked seeing her interact with the other characters. It was really interesting. She was one of those characters that you'd like to see her talk to the other characters. I loved that all the girls are really different, but they have this really great friendship because they're the only girls on this sports team. And there's not a lot of girls in Class 1 Exie, which is what the Foxes are. There's not a lot of girls. They had to fight really hard to be on this team and to be respected in this world. When the book starts, they've already come from their complicated pasts and come together. I liked that they were kind of this steady friendship throughout all the books. There wasn't like fighting amongst the girls. Something about the Foxes is that it's a big theme throughout the books, that blood family does not really equal your family, and you can find family in the people that you choose to love and trust. No matter what your past was or what your family is like, you can find people to become your support. The character development in these books is really some of the best. There's a direction that you really want the characters to go. Like, you see where they could go and you're like, oh, I just want them to get there. But Nora Sakavic makes you wait for it. They get there, but it takes all 3 books. She does it like in perfect timing so that when it happens, it is so satisfying to read. There were so many times when I was out loud, like, talking to the book. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I use caution when I'm suggesting these books to people. A lot of the triggers are actually in past tense, like drug addiction and self-harming. They mention, or you find out that the characters struggled with that in the past. But there are scenes for some of the triggers that are very intense. There are torture scenes. There's a couple. People often say about these books that there is a rape scene. There is, but I think better wording is that rape is addressed, because it's not written from the person's point of view, which I think makes a huge difference when you're reading it. But again, it's a very heavy subject that the author is dealing with. The first book is a lot less intense. I wouldn't give caution as much with the first book, but the second and third books are the ones that there's some scenes. But the author doesn't write it like a horror book. You don't feel overwhelmed by the darkness of these things. It doesn't weigh you down, make you feel really heavy. She does it in a very matter-of-fact way. I say this a lot when I'm trying to explain to people what is so different about this book. It's like these characters existed. It's like this story existed. And Nora Sakavic is just writing it the way that it is. And that applies to, especially to the triggers. It feels like she didn't connive this. You don't feel the author behind the writing. Sometimes in books or like TV shows or whatever, you know that the writers are doing it to entertain people, like to add angst or to make you feel a certain way. These books are not like that. It's not exploitive. It addresses their flaws and their struggles. She's showing a possible reality and the way that someone could heal from those things. It's the difference between portraying something, just showing it as an example, and promoting something. Like, sometimes these characters use harsh words or slurs. Most of the time, those characters who say those things are actually corrected. But if you don't like seeing or reading that stuff, no matter what the context is, I think that's when it would be difficult to read these books. To sum it all up, what I really love about these books is the characters. I love Neil Jostin, especially Andrew Minyard. I didn't get to talk a lot about him, but he's for sure one of my favorite characters. I loved watching them as a team try and figure out how to work together despite how crazy they are. I laughed a lot. There's a character named Nikki who really makes you laugh a lot. There's a quote from The Raven King, which is the second book, that says, "They'd never be perfect, but they were going to be all right. They'd come to the Foxhole Court as fractured messes, but they were fixing each other one semester at a time." I think that really sums up the books pretty well. You watch these characters, you get to know their mindset and their lives so well, and then you get to watch them like overcome all of that and rise from that and be stronger, and it's just so much fun. It's so satisfying. It's so like inspiring. I felt really uplifted after every time I've read these books. I've just felt like I could do anything, which is kind of a great feeling to get after you finish a book. That's everything I have to say about The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakavic. I hope this was helpful if you've been wondering if you want to read the books or not. I hope that it gave you an idea as to whether you'll like it for yourself or not. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the subscribe button. I'm Miss Emma Reads a Lot on all of my social media, which I will link down in the description box. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys soon with a new video.